Are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go, buddy.
All right.
Me and my beads are ready.
I don't even know if you've looked at the list, but I've added one to the top of the list.
Oh, I have looked at the list. Yes.
What gives you the most confidence that this Sugar Bowl is not going to be another Lucy pulling the football out from under
Oh,
Charlie Brown situation on the big stage for Notre Dame?
look, I'm going into this with the lowest expectations possible, especially since I'm here. Okay. Especially since I'm in person and I have to see all these people in person. So, like, I am confident, but it's a very quiet confidence. All right. Now, what gives me the most confidence would be Marcus Freeman, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that he will have this team ready to go. I think a lot of talent aside, like I think these teams are very even when it comes to roster. And so it's whatever team's going to be ready and it's going to, execute and all of those things. I trust Marcus Freeman to get him there. I do. I really do. So that's what gives me the most confidence. When I was watching the press conference this morning, there was one coach that was loose and smiling and answering questions. The other guy was a little more uptight, to be perfectly honest with you. Just didn't look like he wanted to be
Was
there.
the uptight guy? Did he have a little bit of a southern draw to his? You saying
bit.
that?
I'm just saying. And look, maybe I don't see him on a day-to-day basis. Maybe that's just who he is, and that's fine. But if you were just looking and you were just some random guy that walked into the room, one guy looked very comfortable and all of that, and the other guy didn't. That's my opinion.
My confidence stems from when you hear everybody, including Kirby Smart, but it's not just Kirby Smart, throwing out compliments because he has to, because it's 1 or 2 days before he plays the team. Like the physicality that Notre Dame plays with is what sticks out to a lot of people. So start with that in the trenches. And I'm very confident that Notre Dame is going to be able to go toe to toe in the trenches in a way that they really haven't been able to in some of these matchups in the past. And on top of that, the secondary is really where I feel the most confident. Like if I'm looking at the matchup of Notre Dame's secondary against the, not just the SEC team, but the team in the entire nation with the most drop passes, and the way Notre Dame plays in the secondary, like that has been a poor matchup for Notre Dame in virtually all of these big matchups. Like go back to 2020, go back to 2018. Go back to 2012 in the BCS championship game. Go back before that to the Sugar Bowl when Notre Dame, got waxed by LSU. Go to the Fiesta Bowls when Notre Dame got waxed by Ohio State a couple of times. Notre Dame's secondary just could not match up from, a talent standpoint, from a speed standpoint, from any of that. This is the most elite secondary that Notre Dame has had probably, since guys like Todd Light were running, like we're talking about 30 years now at this point, 30 plus years at this point. This is the best secondary Notre Dame has had in this century in these kind of matchups. And those things give me the most confidence that at the very least, this is going to be a very competitive game.
Yes, I will say my secondary answer to that is the Notre Dame offense. Look, Notre Dame's been in big games before. They've had really good defenses in the past. I completely agree with your assessment of the secondary, but they can't score. They could not score in big games,
Right?
And I think that changes tomorrow. I think they'll be able to score, and that look.
That's true. I didn't think about that, but again, you got a different kind of quarterback.
Sure.
And you've got a different kind of athlete in the backfield. Excuse me.
Completely agree.
Well, because none of the running backs, if we just look at the 2 previous college football playoff appearances in the BCS championship game, like these basically all 3 of the guys, the quarterback and the 2 running backs would start for any of those teams.
Agreed. Oh, 100%. And
start. Yeah.
Look, they're going to have to score. Like the defense can do what they do, but the offense has to score, and I think they will. And that's going to be the biggest difference in this whole thing. Mike Denbrock.
Okay, okay, all right, I like it. Someone posted this on the Champions Lounge the other day, and I liked it. So here it is. Who are the 3 players who will have the biggest impact on this game?
Yeah, this one's tough. Riley Leonard.
I agree.
Jeremiah Love,
Okay.
Xavier Watts. Those are my three.
I went with Watts first, and then I'm like, is it Drake Bowen? Especially,
Yeah.
I still think it's Watts, but I think Bowen is going to have a pretty big impact on this game as well because of Georgia and the run game. But I think that Watts is just going to be, because of the way he plays, because of the fact that he can both come downhill, he and Adon Schuler, but also play center field and come up with the timely plays at the back of the secondary the way he does. I think it's got to be Xavier Watts, but I don't think Drake Bowen is too far off. I'm on Drake Bowen for a pretty big game as well. And I mean, it's got to be Riley Leonard because of the fact that, you've got to have the quarterback to make this thing go. And when it's time for Notre Dame, just like the Texas A&M game, when it was time for Riley Leonard to go out and make some plays, both with his legs and with his arm, there was Riley Leonard making plays and leading them to the win, just like he did against Clemson last year when he was still at Duke as well. I cheated a little bit because for my third, I mean, I've just got to go Gunnar Stockton because because of the fact that, look, if Georgia's going to win this game, it can't be in spite of Gunnar Stockton.
Correct.
It's at least got to be in part because of Gunnar Stockton or because he doesn't make fatal flaws in this game.
Agreed.
So I didn't go just Notre Dame on this list. I had to include Stockton on this list as well.
No, I agree with that. The ultimate one for me, though, is 13 in blue or white tomorrow. It's the ultimate one. They go as he goes. I mean, if he has a good game, they win. It really comes down to that. I don't think that Georgia's built for a shootout. And so if Riley Leonard, does what he needs to do, and again, it's not throw for 4 touchdowns or anything like that, but it's lead the team on touchdown drives. If he does that, then they win, right? If it's a low-scoring affair where both teams are struggling to score, that might lean towards Georgia. You know what I mean? So the whole thing for me is Riley Leonard. That's the whole thing for me.
I think so as well. Some people saying Gabriel Rubio, look, like I know people are worried about, losing Riley Mills, and that is a significant loss for Notre Dame because he's been a huge factor against opposing teams' run game. The biggest question to me, is how fresh Rubio can stay in this game. How are they able to spell him? Because they haven't, like we talk about Stockton and not playing a lot of high leverage snaps. Well, Armel Mukum has played in 6 games. Sean Sevillano has played in, I think it's 3 games, and they both got big bodies, but neither of them have played, anywhere close to high leverage snaps against, even some more inferior type teams, that Notre Dame has played this year. So how are they going to fare against a much more physically imposing offensive line by Georgia? If they, can you get 10 snaps out of each of them? Donovan Heinisch is going to factor in this as well, but let's be honest, the reason that you're looking at Mukum and Sevillano, obviously, and Rubio as well, is because they're the biggest bodies that Notre Dame has. They're all over 300 pounds, whereas Heinisch is still, a couple burgers shy of that, So it's I think that Heinisch can at the very least spell Howard Cross to help keep Cross fresh, but I'm concerned about that 3 technique guy just being able to eat some blocks. And again, that's so important for a couple of different, because I talked about Drake Bowen, obviously, the big, can Rubio occupy some blocks and let those linebackers make play? I think that he can.
I think he
I'm
can
not
too.
worried about Rubio at all.
Right.
The run.
Right.
He's just not probably going to get nearly as much pass rush from him as you would get from Riley Mills.
Yeah, the biggest issue is he's not going to be on the field every play. I think he's going to be fine when he's out there. It's just what happens when he's not. That's the biggest one for sure.
All right. So, does Notre Dame have an advantage since they played 10 days ago and Georgia hasn't played? It'll be 24 days since their game, since the SEC championship game 3 weeks ago. Riley Leonard was asked that question this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought about that then again, they've been in the playoffs probably like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
But I think just like this year alone, they're they're a newer team. I'm sure a lot of their guys haven't quite been here yet. So I think them having a month off and us playing just a couple weeks ago can help us out a lot. And we kind of, we're like convincing ourselves that that's a huge advantage for us.
All right, so Riley Leonard, at least mentally, like you said, he's convincing himself that it's a huge advantage.
That's great.
Whether that means anything, I don't know. But what do you think, Vince? How much of an advantage is this that Notre Dame has played? It'll be 10 days for them, I guess 11 days. It'll be 24 for Georgia since their last game.
I think there's a little bit of truth to that. I think if there is truth to that, once the game actually starts, then, Notre Dame needs to take advantage early, right? Because if there is some rust to knock off for Georgia, it's going to be early. And so you have to take advantage of maybe some mistakes or maybe just not being as quick off the ball or whatever the case may be, maybe early, right? So you have to take advantage of that. It was funny. Marcus Freeman was asked that same question this morning at his press conference, and he's like, is it more of an advantage, to have 3 weeks off than play
right.
and then
about
play
the
again?
buys,
He goes, ask me again after who wins. He's like, then I'll tell you who had the advantage. You know what I mean?
Well, but the other part of Marcus Freeman's answer in that was, look, I'm not going to sit here and say we'd be better off, having the bye farther away, because then I'm just making excuses. I'm not going to sit here and make a bunch of excuses for my team. It is what it is, no matter what. I do think that at least like early in the game, it can be a slight advantage for Notre Dame. I don't think over the course of an entire game, it's going to mean that much. It's kind of like when Notre Dame faces the option teams and it takes a play or two or a series or two, to kind of get into the flow of defending the option. I think maybe there's a little bit of that for Georgia because they haven't played a live game and Notre Dame has. So, because most bowl games you go into, both teams are in about the same situation, just like Notre Dame and Indiana when they played. So I think that there can be an early advantage for Notre Dame, like first couple series potentially, just in the fact that they're already up to game speed and Georgia's kind of trying to get back there.
I think the person if Georgia for things that go for this as well, and he doesn't. So I do think that benefits Notre Dame.
Say that over again. You were chopping on my end.
Okay, sorry. So I think the fact that Georgia did not have a game last week means Gunnar Stockton didn't have a game last week either. So I think that does benefit Notre Dame because he's going to have to get his feet wet, right? And if he had a game,
it could be a big advantage for Stockton if he had like an actual game to play in.
Yeah, he's just been having practice. Practice goes as the coaches want it to go. You know what I mean? It's a controlled environment. Nothing about tomorrow night will be a controlled environment. So if he doesn't have that under his belt, I think that's an advantage.
Yeah. And look, I realize, every Georgia fan seems to think that this is a huge benefit for their offense. The fact that you're getting this guy and he does have, a different dimension to his game and all that kind of stuff. But he's still a first-time starter going up against an elite defense. And if that's not a big factor tomorrow night, then it's game over for Notre Dame. But I think that it will be a big factor because this is an elite defense that he's going up against. Fill in the blank. When we talked to Notre Dame nose guard Howard Cross over the weekend, he said he's more excited than he is nervous or scared to face Georgia's interior offensive line, and that's blank.
Great. I don't want him to be scared. Excited is good. I'm okay with excited. I don't want you to be scared. So that's good. I like that. At the very least, it's the right answer. So I'm good with it.
I think what was fun, and I wish that I had the audio so I could play the whole thing because it would make more sense to play it. I was standing there and I had just finished something else and I didn't start the recorder again and set it there so that it was going. He said that, like when he was, asked about going up against this kind of offensive line, that when he was a kid, there was like some cartoon that he would watch. And there was like this freakishly, big cartoon character. And then this little character, and the little guy, you know, was basically that's where he's drawing this from, is like the little guy was like, I'm not scared, you know, I'm excited for this, you know, that kind of thing. So he was drawing his emotion, his energy from this cartoon character. And of course, he couldn't remember exactly what the cartoon character was. But I mean, look, that's the kind of attitude that you would expect from Howard Cross. I mean, he's an East Coast guy, you know, he's kind of got that Jersey mentality and that whole thing. And you know, if you're going into a rock fight, you want to be with the guy who's going to carry one of the biggest rocks, you know, to the rock fight, and you want to feed off that guy, right? And that's what Howard Cross is. And I think that, you know, like when you talk about Rubio stepping in to that position right next to him and the other guys around him, I think they all feed off that kind of toughness and that physicality that Howard Cross is going to bring him. I mean, you've got Howard Cross in the rock fight, and you've got the rolling ball of nails, Gabriel Rubio, that Al Golden called Rubio earlier this year. So how can you go wrong with that? You
love
know?
it. Love it. Love it. That's it. Like I said, at the very least, it's the right answer. We'll see what it looks like once kickoff rolls around.
Yes. So there has been a lot of talk over the past weekend about whether or not the college football playoff quarterfinals should be held on campus sites like the first round was, instead of at these bowl sites, to give the teams that got those first round buys a home playoff game. Do you buy or sell that, Vince?
That's a huge sell for me. I think it needs to, if you're in the playoff, you get to this point, it needs to be at a bowl game site. I don't like that at all. I mean, how much advantage do you want to give them? They already got to buy. Like, they don't need more of an advantage. I mean, no, that's a big time sell for me. I like the game is bigger because it's here, not because it's there, you know, on a campus site. The campus site was great for round one. I loved everything about it, but now it's a different story now. Now it's a bowl game and everything that comes with that. And, you know, all the pomp and circumstance and all of that, that's what you want. That's where it needs to be.
I agree. I don't understand why, like, everyone thinks that everyone has to, you know, like, not everyone is under the same set of rules and all this, right? Because 4 teams got buys, like only those 4 teams got buys. And 2 of those 4 teams are teams that, you know, if you just seeded at 1 through 12, were not really deserving of getting those buys. But because of the system that they came up with, they got those first round buys. And of course, I'm talking about Arizona State and Boise State. They were lower ranked teams, but because they were one of the 4 highest rated conference champions, they got those buys. That's the reward. The reward is you get the bye. You don't also get the home game like the teams that had to play in the first round got. And, you know, I agree. Like, now you take it to another place, to another stage. You're on a bigger stage now by playing in these bowl games. So I don't think that you should get both. You either get the bye or you get a home game, you know, and you know, they're probably, I'm going to be really interested to see here, because next year, you know, is the last year of this contract. And then 2026 is when the new, you know, playoff format is going to come out. They've still got to get that figured out. I'll be really curious to see, you know, what overall tweaks they make, you know, like, will, you know, teams like Georgia and Oregon, you know, like, will they push for trying to get home playoff games in that round instead of playing at bowls, you know, like with the Big Ten and the SEC? What's that going to look like? But I don't think that, I mean, it's basically a double reward. And I don't think you know, your reward is you got the bye, and the teams that had to play got a home game. If they
look, we're going to talk about this all off season, I'm sure, about what needs to change and all of those different things. Look, there's some things that are really great about this 12-team playoff, right? There's a lot. I mean, it made the regular season that much more exciting down the stretch. You know, all of those different things. I thought the home games were awesome. There's no doubt about that. They just need to figure out how to do the first round buys. Like, it conference championship should have nothing to do with it, in my opinion. But, you know, I'm very much against, like, reseeding after the first round, like that kind of stuff. No, you're not going to reseed, because it pretty much takes away the whole, you got a first round bye, because now you don't even know who you're preparing for. Like, I don't like that part of it. I do like the changing of how they do the buys. I think everybody's on board with that too, after what happened. Like, this might have been worst case scenario for the college football playoff.
Not every, you know, because again, like, to get for them to change the format for next year, they've got to have a unanimous vote. And I can't see the Mountain West and the Big 12 saying, yeah, you're probably right. We don't need these first round buys. I can't see them.
Do they have any kind of
voting to take that away?
I don't feel like they have the equal number of pull either. I don't think they have the pull they think they do.
Right.
Like the Mountain West, they don't have the same vote that the other conferences have.
Well, yeah, they do for this contract. They do. Yeah.
They say that. I don't think that's true. They don't hold the sway in that room that the other conferences have.
No, but again, next year is the last year of the current contract.
Mm-hmm.
So for any change to happen next year, it has to be a unanimous vote to change it. So like the Mountain West doesn't need other people. All they've got to do is vote no, and it's not going to happen. All you've got to do is have one dissenting vote.
Really?
So
that's how they decided. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why it took, to get to the format that we've got right now, it took a unanimous vote because, again, it was the existing contract that they had to change. It's 2026. Once you get to 2026 and beyond, like that's where you just have to have a majority vote basically to change everything. So that's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
The Mountain West doesn't need anyone to join up with them. All they've got to do is say, nope, we don't want that. And they can't change it.
Okay, fair enough.
At that point.
I didn't realize like the MAC had the same vote that everybody else does. Whoever came up with that was dumb. That should have never been a thing.
So Mike Denbrock was asked the other day if he's ever coached with someone who's as aggressive with fake punts and field goals as Marcus Freeman.
I can't say that I have. No, I think the players love it. I love it, and I think it goes to the theme of us as a football program. I mean, we're playing to win, and we're not afraid of what that means, and not everybody is. So, whether it's going for it offensively on fourth down or whether we feel like we can take a possession back by making a play on special teams, those guys have done an incredible job with that all year.
All right, so Vince, when did Freeman become like this gambling special teams fake coach? Doesn't it kind of feel like it just kind of happened all at once, really?
It's pretty clear he's got a lot of confidence in all three of his coordinators, right? I mean, they seem to have something different lined up for special teams every single game, which most coordinators do, special teams coordinators. But he's not afraid to go for it. And I think a lot of that comes from his faith in Al Golden and his faith in Mike Denbrock as well. That's where I think it comes from. But it's also faith in Biaggi and what he's able to come up with. But I think a lot of that has to do with Al Golden too.
No, absolutely. Faith in Al Golden and the defense, that gives you the confidence to do that. But I like what Mike Denbrock was talking about, like it's the mentality. We're playing this thing to win. And Marcus Freeman and Marty Biaggi. I don't want to leave Marty Biaggi out of this, but obviously Freeman is, kind of at the top of the heap there. I mean, he's turned special teams. They've turned special teams into an asset in the short amount of time, like that Freeman has been head coach, because, Brian Mason obviously had a lot of success and he went to the NFL. There was a little bit of in between last year. And, like some of the blocks kept, were coming and stuff like that. And everyone's like, man, are they ever going to run any fakes? And then it's like fake city left and right, and very imaginative fakes as well. I wonder like how much the analytics guy that Marcus Freeman brought on the staff this year has kind of played into that as well. You know what I mean? Like the percentages of,
don't bring that up, Sean. Nobody likes that guy. We were told that nobody likes him. So you can't bring that up. You know the rules.
Nobody likes him. That's right.
Nobody likes him.
They stopped showing him they stopped showing him on the sideline for the most part, it seems like. Didn't they?
I don't know. I have paid zero attention. I could care less who he talks to on the sideline. You know what I mean? Like, as long as he's making the right decisions, who cares? But remember how big of a conversation that was?
Oh my gosh.
It's unbelievable.
It is.
And I agree with you. I think that relationship is one of the deciding factors as to why he does what he does. I absolutely believe that.
I do too. Fill in the blank. Arizona State running back Cam Scadaboo saying, quote, "There's nobody out there that can stop me," end quote. Heading into tomorrow's game with Texas is blank.
Oh, dangerous, dude. Like, what are you thinking, man? I actually saw that, and I sent it to a couple of my friends. I was like, I think he's going to be upset with going that far out on the limb that he just went out on. Like, he is going to be taken out of that game, from a statistical standpoint, not from
Right.
bounty gate or something. I'm just saying, I don't think he's going to be as successful as he thinks he's going to be in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I realize at least he's a player and he's saying this, but Kurt Signetti found out the hard way, right? Like, talk is cheap, like you got to go out there and do it. Look, he's had a nice season, and Arizona State's had a nice season, and it's fun and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't see it happening against that Texas defense, man. Like, that Texas defense is really good, and I don't see, I don't see a guy like him carrying Arizona State to the victory against the Longhorns. Sorry.
I think that could be the biggest margin of defeat of these 4 games is that game right there. Because the quarterback's doing some talking too, by the way. Talking about
he's in on that as well.
He's the better quarterback on the field and all of those different things. Like, I just think that game's not going to turn out well. I can't imagine for the Sun Devils. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like that's going to be the biggest margin of defeat in this whole thing.
I can't remember what my prediction was. I mean, I know I have Texas winning. I can't remember what the score was, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being pretty low.
I was like 34-10, something like that. Like, I just think it's going to get out of hand.
It's just a bad combination because Arizona State also does like very few pressures. They don't get after the quarterback. They don't disrupt very well at the line of scrimmage. Like Josh was saying, the Big 12 doesn't have good defenses when you're talking about that side of the ball. I just don't think that this, like, you've got to get after Quinn Ewers and disrupt him in the backfield. And Arizona State just doesn't do enough of that. So I just don't see it being a good matchup for them.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not. And they're fairly one-dimensional. I mean, the kid's okay that they can throw the ball all right, but man, they've never played up against a team like this. And I just don't think they have the horses. It doesn't take away from the great season that they had, but I don't see it.
What do you think about this from Outbound? Does Boise State shock Penn State?
No, I don't think so. I think that they might get inside the number, which I think is 11 right now, but I don't see them winning. As much as I, don't trust Franklin and all of those different things and that whole diatribe.
It's just not a good matchup.
It's not, man. It has nothing, and it has nothing to do with coaching. It's like these guys are significantly better than these guys.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Like, Ashton Genty is a really good running back. And, but Boise State is just too, I know they've thrown the ball. I'm not saying they don't throw the ball at all, but ultimately they're just too one-dimensional to have enough success against Penn State. Penn State's strength is their front. It's their defensive line.
Right.
And Boise State's offensive line, I just don't see them being able to push open enough to spring Genty free enough, and if Penn State gets up, I don't, again, I just don't think it's a good matchup for Boise State.
It's not. It'll be somewhat competitive, but at the end of the day, Penn State just has too much.
So a few game props for Notre Dame, Georgia. Jeremiah Love has plus 105 odds to score a touchdown. That means the odds are against him in this game to score a touchdown. Usually he's got minus, like he's favored to score a touchdown. Georgia running back Trevor Etienne has the best touchdown odds at minus 170. Riley Leonard is plus 155. So what do you make of all that, Vince?
I make of that as disrespect to number 4 and white. And they want to continue that. That's totally fine. But that's been a gimme bet all season, and it will continue to be that. He'll get in the end zone. regardless of whether Notre Dame wins or not. He's getting in the end zone.
He scored in 14 straight games. The
Correct.
Sun Bowl was today. Like this year's Sun Bowl.
Every game he's played in a year.
In a calendar year, he has scored in every game that he's scored a touchdown, a rushing touchdown in every game that he has played in, 14 straight games at this point. And I found it shocking that he doesn't have favorable odds.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, especially considering the run defense that he's going to go up against tomorrow night. He's going to score.
I agree. I mean, at the very least, one of those two guys, Leonard or Love, is going to score. I just find it very odd that Etienne has better odds than either one of Notre Dame's guys.
Who's been back for one game, by the way.
And I don't know if maybe it's just because, you're hedging because now it's better, it's a better team that they're going to face, and it's going to be one of the two, Leonard or Love, maybe, is kind of where they're placing this. But I think it's very
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Okay. Riley Leonard's over-under passing number is 178.5. Gunnar Stockton's is 175.5. Who you like better?
Well, I like Stockton because I think he's going to be throwing the ball a bunch at the end. So I think he's going to rack up some yards that he probably would not have gotten if it was a legitimate four-quarter, close game. I think he's going to be throwing because they're going to be behind. And so I think those numbers get inflated a little bit, and I think he'll get over that number. Remember, Mr. Rourke, who everybody loved, had 90 passing yards going into the fourth quarter in the last game, and 44, I want to say, of those came on one play, or 38, something like that. It was a big number, right? The big chunk play in the first drive. I think Notre Dame will do a good job of limiting him, but I think some of those artificial pass yards will come into play at the end. So I'll take the over there.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Even though I don't think the game is going to play out necessarily the way Notre Dame and Indiana played out. I think it'll be a little bit different, but I do think that Stockton is going to have to pass. Have to throw it around a little bit more. So I like him over that 175.5. Leonard is just too. He'll have the 200-yard game, but then he's down around 140, 150 yards. And it just feels like this is not a game where he needs to have that kind of game for Notre Dame to succeed. His rushing number, Leonard's rushing number is 40.5 yards. Stockton's is 15.5. I
would take,
I like the over on both of them.
There you go. I completely agree with that. Yeah, I completely agree. It's over.
I was pretty shocked that Stockton's was as low as it is at only 15.5 yards.
Yeah, Dr. Gonzo says the Gunner's going to go for over 60 yards on the ground. I don't see that happening. No. Sorry, I do not.
He's going to be sacked at least a couple of times.
And that takes those numbers down. It's not the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I do like the overs on both. So the running backs, Love, his rushing yards, 67.5. Etienne, 86.5. Price, 28.5. So let's just go Love and Etienne. Love, 67.5.
I mean, honestly, this is hard. So one of those two, Price or Love, is going to push 100 yards. It just depends on who do you think that's going to be, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, I like Price to be over 28.5 for sure. I like Love over 60. I would take the over on both the Notre Dame running backs. Etienne is tough though, 86.5. If he gets up that high, that's trouble for Notre Dame, in my opinion. So as a fan of the way I want the game to go, I would like him to be under that number. That's a tough number. I'll take the under as an optimistic take.
86.5 is a really big number.
It is.
For Etienne. And I can't see that. So I've got to be under there. And, the Love Price thing is always, Price, it's been mostly Love for these last several games. Basically since Virginia, Love has been at, or, he's either been over or right at 100 yards. He had 99 against USC. You've got to go back to Florida State, which basically, they kind of, I don't want to say they took him away, but I mean, there just wasn't much to his game that day. But otherwise,
Mhm.
it's been pretty much love ever since. So like 67.5. The only thing that makes me question it is I do think that Kirby Smart's going to have a better defensive game plan going up against Jeremiah Love. So it's going to be, again, it's like, how much does the threat of Riley Leonard, especially if Leonard, pops a run or two early, how much does that continue to open up, rushing lanes for Love? And remember, Love and Price both have some of the best yards after contact in the nation this year. So I like him. I like both Price and Love to go over those totals. Price is 28.5 yards.
That's an easy take for me over for him. That's an easy.
So receiving wise, Bo Collins 22.5, Jordan Faison 31.5, Mitchell Evans 29.5. And I'll just say the one I am most confident in is Mitchell Evans.
That's fair. I'm most confident in Evans and Faison, probably the same. Collins, again, I said this before the IU game, and he made a very crucial third down catch, in the first drive to keep that drive going. I think he was brought to Notre Dame for games like this. He's been in these games. I think he's going to step up. I think he's going to catch a very key third down, and convert, keep a drive going, just like he did in the IU game. That's just not super confident on the numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And it's like every other game with him.
It could be a 5-yard catch. It could be absolutely crucial because it was 3rd and 3. You know what I mean? But I'm not confident in the number.
Yeah, and I'm not confident in Jordan Faison just because there hasn't been, he just had the biggest game for any Notre Dame receiver last week. So, what's your confidence that he's going to put another one together right after that? I wouldn't be confident in any Notre Dame receiver because that's just not the way it's gone for this group this year.
Yeah, I think Leonard is getting very comfortable with Faison. I feel like he kind of looks for him a little bit more than maybe he did before. That would be the only reason for me pushing any kind of confidence on that number for him. I feel like there's a growing relationship there.
Okay. So Notre Dame is a 1.5 point underdog. They have minus 105 odds on the money line. Georgia's minus 114 to win. The over under is 45.5 on this game.
I mean, obviously I think Notre Dame's going to win, so I would take Notre Dame plus the 1.5, and then I would take them on the money line. The over-under is tough because I don't know that either team is going to reach 30. And
I think 20 points wins this game.
Yeah,
personally.
I'm kind of in that neighborhood myself. I really am. I'm trying to remember my score prediction to see if it hits 45. Let's see. No, it doesn't. So I'll take the under.
Yeah, I'm under as well. I've got Notre Dame winning 20-17 in this game.
Okay. So, I've got them win 27-17. So it's just under.
27-17. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, Brian posted all of our, predictions on the boards today. So it's the cat's out of the bag. So you're not saving anything at this point.
Right.
So,
right.
I've got Penn State beating Boise State. I've got Texas beating Arizona State. A lot of people picking Ohio State to win this rematch. I think it's going to be really hard. This is the first time we've ever seen this where, because we're in the playoffs now. For Ohio State to put together back-to-back big games like they just had against Tennessee, against the number 1 seed in this tournament. I've got Oregon winning another close one, but I've got the Ducks winning. What do you got?
I did have Ohio State. I think it was 24-21. So I think it's going to be close. That game's a toss-up to me, to be perfectly honest. If Ohio State plays the way they did against Tennessee, they beat Oregon. But can they do that 2 games in a row? I don't know. I feel like the Michigan game was kind of their NIU for the season.
For sure. And they've rallied off it, just in the one game that they've had since then.
Can they continue to do that? That's
John incredibly low, 10-7.
Oof, that would be a very boring game if that was the case. But hey, guess what? I don't care though. If John's right and Notre Dame wins by 3, cool.
It's all that matters, right?
We're booking tickets to Miami. Let's
go.
So
we're going to have 1 million people bitching about the offense at that point.
100%. And that just means better shows between now and January 9th or whenever that next game is.
It is January 9th. There won't be that much time. A little bit less time in between games.
Yeah, 8 days.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. We're going to wrap it up with that. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Vince, enjoy the dinner. Find a good movie.
You can hear the voices. It's getting louder. There's a good amount of people in here now.
Are there? Well, you really can't hear that. I kind of heard just a little bit.
That's good. The problem is they use real plates, and so it's a lot of clanking.
I did hear the clanking. I didn't necessarily hear voices, but I did hear the clanking. So.
Yeah, they're making it impossible for me to steal stuff and take it upstairs to my wife.
All right. Everybody have a safe and happy New Year. Vince and Brian, and who else is going to be with you tomorrow night?
I don't know if I'm going to be there because I've got to come back and, do stuff. So I'm
okay.
TBA on me. I don't know who's going to be there.
Somebody's going to be doing.
It'll definitely be Brian. It'll definitely be Trevor.
Will it end before 5 a.m.? That's the question.
A solid question. Solid question.
All right. Enjoy the game. Happy New Year. Don't get too crazy tonight.
Yeah.
Have fun, and we will talk to you later on Aviation Sports Talk.